Dr. Anna, I know that we touched on this a little bit, but there's clearly a lot of stigma and discomfort in talking about these things, and that's leading to poor research. That's leading to poorly informed doctors. But what kind of global problems can we really see coming out of the discomfort that people experience around these topics or the stigma around these issues?
Well, great part of humanity is in perpetual pain. That is kind of like a big
Sure.
thing, right? So that is one thing. But also the fact is that, not recognizing these actual physical issues that you can have like before and during a period, or like during ovulation. I mean, that can lead to a lot of people feeling very isolated and not understanding what's going on with them, and self-hatred, and very dark thoughts, and just understanding that certain things are normal in a certain scope, and you're not alone, and then some things are not normal and you should get help by them. Just getting a little bit more knowledge around that would, I think, ease so many minds out there. And I'm not talking about just the women here. I'm talking about, or like anyone that suffers from PMS. I should have been more inclusive in my statement, but it involves all their partners as well that might not have sort of experiences with uteri, uteruses. That was like really really a weird thing to say. So I think just this understanding between partners as well about when sex drive is high, when it's lower, and not having like unrealistic expectations of each other, and being a little bit more chill about, okay, so now it's like these days, so I might be a little bit more irritable and a bit more down, and then I might be completely horny another part of the month. Just having that knowledge and acknowledging that, I know that most partners, they do that, but having a little bit more of an open conversation could potentially also avoid a lot of conflicts at home, and particularly when it comes to painful sex, when it comes to just pain, background pain in general, to be able to communicate that and not just immediately be labeled a hysterical woman as soon as you're in pain, or it can't be that bad. I don't know how many times I've heard somebody telling me, a medical doctor telling me, it can't be that bad. What do you mean it can't? And how do you know? Right? I'm pretty pain tolerant. I've been, you know, whipped a fair few times. Have hanged myself in hooks and literally through my own skin. I am not a super pain sensitive person, and if I can faint from that pain, it is kind of bad. So, but of course, I'm a weak, feeble, hysterical woman coming to complain about it. So
Clearly.
these are the things. It would help so many people if we were just more open about it, if more research was done, and if you could talk to a partner a bit better. It's hard. I've had problems communicating with my partners as well, that I'm in pain, because it's felt like I was not a real woman. I was defect somehow. So
Hmm.
I don't know how many times in my life I've had pain, like sex and then excruciating pain at the same time, pretending I was fine, which has led to kind of a trauma thing as well, where I had problems, getting orgasm, and then I managed to sort that out. But it was like a lot of things that happens when you start having a lot of sex when it's really really painful. You lose your sex drive. There's a whole like rat tail of issues that will come marching in, and these issues can in turn like really mess up with your relationship, because the
Mm.
person that you love or that you want to be with, um and try to make them understand that the reason why you don't want to have sex is because you're in pain. And then also have that playfulness, which I have not allowed my partners. I had been in too much pain to allow for playfulness, and I wouldn't even let them poke around in me, because I had too much experiences with people who like poked around too hard or wrong, and I never felt like I was in the driver's seat and could tell them stop poking around so hard. So it was just a big clusterfuck basically, and in a bad way, right? So I think it's so important to talk about these things. What do you think?
Yeah, Absolutely. No, I appreciate you highlighting all of that. I wondered if this was going to come up on air, but I just last night was making drinks for my partner and I had some random ingredients, and I thought, yeah, I'll give this a try. And I mixed together just sort of a random cocktail using whatever I had laying around. And I went to hand it to my partner, and I thought to myself, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. And she goes, what are you calling this? And I was like, the period blood. That was the thing I was trying not to say. Sorry, didn't mean to put you off your appetite. My mistake. And her immediate response was, that's not what period blood looks like. It's the wrong color. And I immediately point out to her, I was like, no, I'm not talking about the color. I was talking about the jam that was floating at the bottom. It's a little bit chunky. You know, it's got
Yeah.
just that right texture. And she started laughing, and she was honestly, I think, surprised, because even though I'm this guy, like I do this show, if you know nothing else about me, you know that I talk about sex in front of an audience for hours every week. And even still, I think she was a little bit surprised that me as a cis male had any like understanding or acknowledgement of that aspect of menstruation.
The
And
lumpy
just
part.
yeah, well, just highlighting the fact that so many guys, I'm confident there are guys that are listening to this right now going, what is he talking about? Just the fact that we are so unaware or so disconnected, and that we've done so much to like shield men from ever having to participate or understand or believe women's experiences around menstruation is just baffling and frankly very upsetting to me. So I'll get off my soapbox and let Martin take over from here. But it's just bizarre that that we are so unwilling to talk about something that's such a common and basic part of life for such a large number of humans.
Yeah.
Roughly half, right? Give or take.
Yeah, more or less.
Give or take a few million.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Anna, how can we develop better understanding and compassion around these concerns without dipping into the territory of like, somebody's PMSing? You know, we don't want to trivialize these things because they're valid medical concerns. So, how can we approach that?
I think, talking about it, I think, is super important. And and also like, maybe not always take it so super seriously. Also, like it's fun. It's also okay to make jokes about it and then have fun. But having like walking up to somebody who's really suffering and going like, "Oh, do you have PMS?" That is like punchable, I think.
Fair to say.
Yeah.
No,
because
that's definitely not something you'd say to a stranger.
No.
Or just a casual acquaintance or anything.
No, but even at home, I mean, it's like it's kind of it has become such a downgraded comment of like, okay, you're being hysterical, so I should not take what you're saying seriously now. Instead of maybe treating it as something that is like as a physical condition, and just treat it as such, and don't poke around in it if that person is suffering. Maybe have a little bit more of an tolerance for things as well during those days. But I think just talking about it is the key, I think.
Yeah.
Raising awareness. Yeah.
Well, fair to say. And I'm going to let Martin kind of wrap us up for the night here in just a moment. But I guess outside of that idea of we should be talking about these things, we should be taking them seriously and making them a more regular part of life, I'm curious if there are any other sort of hopeful takeaways you have for everybody watching tonight, or any little differences that any of us can hope to make on these issues.
I think one thing that I would like to mention is that endometriosis centers are popping up a little bit here or there in Europe. I don't know about the US, but the issue is taken much more seriously now. I remember back in 2008, I think it was, the recently opened endometriosis center in Uppsala in Sweden was, it's just the fact that, there's a whole country and there's one center for endometriosis back then. It's kind of crazy for an entire country of like 10 million people. But there are more and more, and there are more doctors being focused on these issues. So that's great. That's really great. And other than that, I think that enter the be a little bit careful with the patient groups if you have endometriosis, because then you might actually you can get really depressed, and you can get really focused on starting using the illness as an identity, which might not be what you want to do. But join these discussion groups. There are some really good ones around there. And raise awareness. Just I think that is basically the big takeaway.
Fair to say.
Awareness is key. Absolutely.